everyone, welcome to this video. Whenever we delve into a new topic, we first of all need to set a couple things straight. Thus, in the following, I would like to define some terms and shed light on what it actually is you do when you teach content in English. Please have your handout ready in front of you. I would ask you to please take down what you consider to be key information presented in this video. Also, there will be questions and tasks for you to do. All right, are you ready for some terminology? Well, you asked for it. Here we go. So, when you teach content in English, what sort of English do you use? Is it EGP, ESP, EAP, EFL, ELF, EMI, or is it CLIL? Oh, and you thought English is English is English, right? Now, if the acronyms that I just threw at your face are all Greek to you, even if they're English, then this video is exactly what you need. You might have already stumbled across the one or other abbreviation before. All these terms have to do with teaching English or teaching in English. And as with almost everything, it is a good idea to first understand some general terminology. So let's start with the basics. EGP versus ESP. Now, EGP is English for general purposes. ESP is English for specific purposes. And here is already my first question for you. Take a moment and reflect what the differences between these two terms, EGP and ESP, might be. Take your thoughts down in writing on your handout. This is task 1. Please pause the video until you are ready and then continue watching. Do you have an answer? What is the difference between English for general purposes and English for specific purposes? You might say that English for specific purposes, as the name already says, is used in specific situations, whereas English for general purposes is what we might consider normal or conventional English, correct? Now, to be honest with you, all communication has a specific purpose, as there is always a reason why we say or write something, even if it sometimes does not seem this way. So actually, everything we utter in English is ESP. Still, we have come to understand English for general purposes as English used for everyday communication of a normal person. That would be using English for shopping, for ordering food at the restaurant, for example. This is the kind of English we would expect to learn at most schools. ESP, or English for specific purposes, on the other hand, is used for specific situations that are different to these normal activities and include, for example, academic or work-related contexts. Here I have another quick question for you. Can you think of any fields of ESP? See if you can name at least 2 types of English for specific purposes. This is task 2 on your handout. Please pause the video and continue once you are done. You're back. What did you come up with? Which types of English for specific purposes could you think of? Well, how about English for technicians, for example, or English for aviation, English for science and technology, business English, English for social studies, or English for academic purposes? All of these are examples of English for specific purposes. All right, so far, so good. Now this already brings us to the next term, EAP, English for academic purposes. This acronym is used to describe the specifics of English used in academic settings. There are some aspects that make this kind of English quite different from normal English. That is English for general purposes. Again, I have a question for you. This is now task 3 on the handout. What would you say are some of the major differences between EGP, or English for general purposes, and EAP, that is English for academic purposes? Take a moment to think about this question and write your answers down. Pause the video and continue once you are done. What would you say? Well, we could say that academic English is more fact-driven, and general English is more emotion-driven. It is more about sharing our feelings and thoughts, right? Also, in academic English, we need to take responsibility for what we claim. We do so by providing evidence and sources. Also, we could say that normally academic English is more formal, especially in writing, while general English tends to be more informal. Also, academic English is more complex and precise, while general English is often rather simple and vague. Now, most of us are very happy to hear that in contrast to German, for example, grammatical structures contribute relatively little to the differentiation between English for general purposes and English for academic purposes. So grammar stays pretty much the same in EGP and in EAP. But one key difference is certainly vocabulary. Vocabulary in academic English is often very specific and different to the sort of words we use in everyday life. Most students struggle with this aspect. When they come to university, many students believe their English is at least somewhat okay, and it should be after many years at school. And then suddenly at university, when English is used, many students feel they do not understand a thing. It is like they never really learned proper English. This, of course, is very frustrating for many students. What it is that they simply lack the vocabulary of this specific academic field, and the students suddenly find themselves in the slow and sometimes quite painful process of learning tons of new words, while at the same time struggling with new content as well. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, that means that when you teach content in English, you need to pay particular attention to this vocabulary aspect and always keeping this knowledge at the back of your head. When using a foreign language as a medium of instruction, it is crucial to not simply talk as you would in your first language. Instead, you always need to remember that the language used, as familiar as it might be for you, is first and foremost one thing for your students: foreign. It is part of your job to reduce this foreignness. Now, this requires a lot of adaptation of how and what sort of language you use in the classroom. This also means you need to be very focused whenever you interact with your students in the foreign language. And this then also is one reason why you might feel exhausted after a session held in English, by the way. Okay, let's move on. 2 more common terms: EFL and ELF. EFL first. This is English as a foreign language. ELF stands for English as a lingua franca. EFL, or English as a foreign language, is what we normally think of when we envision English language learning and teaching. It is the learning and teaching of English that is neither your first nor your second language. The difference between a second and a foreign language is the degree of foreignness or remoteness from the language. You get in touch with a second language in your regular life, while you normally only encounter a foreign language in specific, mostly formal educational situations, such as a school subject. In Austria, for most people, English is thus a foreign language. English as a lingua franca, or ELF, means that English is used as a means of international communication. It is a common means of communication for speakers of different first languages and can also include speakers who have English as their first language. The focus of English as a lingua franca is that it is a tool that brings people together using one language to share their ideas. Speakers are not language learners, but language users. This also means that there is no focus on the so-called native speaker, and you do not try to imitate a native speaker, but instead you use the language for communication purposes. That is what you focus on, using a common language to communicate. Now, why is that important? Let me have a couple words about feeling small and insecure when using English. We were all brought up with the idea of the native speaker who has perfect language skills, which is of course not true at all. Just think about it. You are a native speaker too. Do you have perfect command of your language? Everything you say and write is perfect. You know all the words and all the meanings in your language and perfectly articulate content in any situation? Well, there you go. Still, this concept is deeply ingrained in all of us. It is extremely important that you become aware of this nonsense and eventually let go of this idea of the perfect, flawless native speaker and the idea that compared to this perfect native speaker, you are just not good enough. This concept is wrong and it is not helpful at all. Instead, learn to understand that you do not need to compare your English language skills to that of a native speaker, simply because it cannot be compared. For you, English is a foreign language. For them, it is a first language. That is something different. Also forget the idea of perfect language skills. These do not exist, and native speakers do not have them either. Instead, make yourself aware of the following. You are a multilingual. You can make use of a foreign language to communicate very complex content, and this fact should not make you feel small and insecure, but proud of what you can do in a foreign language. Most people cannot even communicate such content in their first language, and you do so in a foreign one. Thus, whenever this little voice inside your head wants to make you feel insecure and bad about your English, remember that you are a highly competent multilingual. Instead of bringing yourself down, remind yourself again and again. Really, let the message sink in and understand that being a competent multilingual is your strength. Work with it, use it to your advantage. Now here is another task for you related to what I have just told you. This is task 4 on your handout. Here is what I want you to do. Take a moment to reflect on the underlying idea of English as a lingua franca. Then ask yourself, have you ever compared yourself to what you think is a perfect native speaker? How did that make you feel? And how do you feel about the idea of you being a multilingual, someone who is a native speaker plus can make use of a powerful tool for international communication? Reflect on these questions and take your thoughts down in task 4. Pause the video here, and when you are ready, move on. Alright, you are back. So this leaves us with 2 more acronyms. These are EMI and CLIL. EMI stands for English as a Medium of Instruction. CLIL stands for Content and Language Integrated Learning. Both English as a Medium of Instruction and Content and Language Integrated Learning use English to teach content. There is only one difference between these two. While CLIL or content and language integrated learning is about content and language learning. EMI only uses English as a medium of instruction. The focus of EMI is on content learning and teaching alone, while CLIL tries to teach both at the same time. Having said that, it does not mean that when you use English as a medium of instruction in your course solely to teach content, that you can forget about the language at all. When using English as a medium of instruction, English carries your content. Thus, it is essential and has a huge impact on how you teach and how your students learn the content. If there was no difference whether you teach content in your first or a foreign language, we would not need this course, right? To conclude this video and part of the course, let's do a final task again. Quickly go over the content covered in this video again. Check out your notes and the tasks you have worked on. Refresh your memory on all the different terms and then answer this question. Which of the mentioned terms apply to you as an instructor? Take them down in task 5 on your handout. As always, pause the video and continue once you are done. Perfect, so much for terminology. This then brings us to the end of the video. Let's now all return to our meeting. See you there.